Good afternoon, family. Thanks for checking out today's video. If you are new here, my name is Jonathan, and I created this channel as a way to record my progress as I work towards my goal of losing 300 pounds. If you'd like to join the family, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Also, click on the bell icon so you get alerted when I go live or post new videos. If you'd like to participate on the discussion, you can join me most weekdays where I go live on YouTube around 4 p.m. Central Time, or outside of my YouTube, you can consider joining the Discord I created. There is a link for that down in the description below. Also down in the description below is a link to a Pinterest board. A lot of times I get asked what kind of food or meals I've been eating to lose weight, and that Pinterest board is a great place to see some of those meals and recipes. Today is day 962 of my challenge to lose 300 pounds. So far, through a combination of extended water fasting and a whole food plant-based diet, I have been able to lose over 255 pounds so far. If anybody has any non-scale victories they'd like to share, I'd love to hear your non-scale victories. If you have any on-scale victories, I love hearing those as well. If you are succeeding with your diet, let us all know what you're doing and how it's going. If you're struggling with your diet, let us know what's causing your struggles. Maybe it's something we can help you out with. And at the end of the day, what are some things that you are doing or that you can do that will make staying on your diet easier than the alternative? I'm going to go ahead and switch over here to the main screen. Hello, hello. A couple people checking in. Jean says, hi, John and family. Hello, hello, Jean. Hope you're having a great day. Plants Only Muncher saying hello, hello, Plants Only Muncher. Hope everything's going wonderful for you as well. So today has been an interesting day for me. If you guys have gotten alerts about when I was going to go live, I went back and forth between going live at 3 o'clock and then I was going to go live at 5 o'clock. And then it ended up working out that I was able to go live at the regular time. So I hope it didn't cause any confusion having all of the different things up there. I'm going to go ahead and go over food real quick. Food was really, really light in the last 24 hours. And so I only have a couple photos of food, but yesterday was Monday. So I'm sure the regulars can guess what we had for dinner last night. We had ourselves some mega veggie chili Monday. Absolutely love this meal that we have. What I always talk about when I talk about having mega veggie chili is taste adaptation. This was a meal that I did not enjoy when we first started it. I would eat it because I knew I was supposed to be eating it and it had lots of vegetables in it. And for the first 2 weeks, we had this meal a couple times and I just always ate it because it was the food I had. But after about 2 weeks of eating this way, my taste buds started to adapt. And we had this meal and I can remember saying to Carrie, is this the same thing we've been eating? Because it tastes completely different and it's amazing. And so that kind of began our mega veggie chili Monday. We have this meal pretty much at least once a week. Sometimes we have it a couple times a week, but that was our dinner last night. And then today I had oatmeal for breakfast. That's all I've eaten today was the oatmeal. It was just such a kind of a busy, chaotic day. I do have a big Instapot full of potatoes sitting in the break room that I could have grabbed. I didn't get a chance to. So I'm sure I'll end up eating those when I get home. And you know what? I didn't take a photo of it, but I ate something when I got home yesterday. I feel like I ate my potatoes yesterday at some point. I can't remember, but did not have a ton of food in the past 24 hours. So that's what we did have there. So don't have a whole lot to go over with that. Jay says, hi, Jonathan, you're driving and listening. That's great, Jay. Thanks for checking out the video. Focus on the road. Don't get too distracted by my awesome live stream here that I don't know what I'm going to talk about today because I didn't have a whole lot of time to get prepared or get things going. You know, I guess the title or the topic, you know, was conquering obesity with food. And it's something that I never would have thought that eating would help me lose weight. I was always under the impression that if I wanted to lose weight, I needed to eat less. And that's how every single diet I ever did was revolved around the idea of eating less food so that you consume less calories, so that you put yourself in a calorie deficit and you start losing weight. And from a simple standpoint, that works. And for a short period of time, you will see success eating less food, but it is not sustainable. That's the important part of the diet that everybody seems to miss, is the sustainability. And that was something that I knew going into this challenge, that is where I always failed. I always fell off, was not being able to sustain the diet that I was eating. And it would be incredibly frustrating to go through that experience of being able to eat less and lose weight. And then getting to a point where if I wanted to continue to lose weight, I had to eat even less than I was already eating. And it would just eventually get to a point where it would boil over and you couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't sit there and get on the scale and see that it didn't budge and then convince myself that I should eat less the next week. Because when I looked back at what I had eaten the week previous, I couldn't believe how little I had eaten. And so it goes on and on. It gets tough to keep going on with the diet. And Jay here says, eat more and more vegetables now. Yes, and it's what people were telling me. But I didn't want to listen to it. I didn't want to hear, eat vegetables, eat your vegetables, eat your vegetables. And I would say, well, I'll just eat less of a high quality of the junk food that I was eating instead of eating broccoli, which in hindsight now, I just can't believe how adverse I was to eating broccoli. They always, the big gym weight loss thing was just eat broccoli or just eat chicken and broccoli, like that was the leanest cuts of meat you could have. And that was the weight loss program was broccoli and chicken. And I would always be like, well, I'll just eat the chicken and not the broccoli. And I didn't realize what I was missing by not eating that broccoli. I was missing that volume. So I would try to eat less instead of eat healthier. And what you need to look at what you're eating and realize that it's extremely processed and it's not helping you. Carrie's checking in saying, hi, everyone. Hi, Carrie. Hope everything's going great at home today. But yeah, the idea that, you can just eat less and you'll lose weight. It works for so many people for such a short period of time. It doesn't have the longevity of it. And Carrie's here also talking about what I wish I would have realized with broccoli is like one of our daughters, Carrie says, our broccoli hating daughter has been requesting broccoli for snacks lately. And we may have a convert. Yeah. And just like that taste adaptation I talked about with the Mega Veggie Chili. Your body is going to go through that taste adaptation with all of these new foods. And we have been trying for, a long time now to get that idea through to our kids. The idea that I know you might not like broccoli, but if you eat broccoli today, just a little bit, and then a few days from now, eat a little bit again. And then in a few days, eat a little bit again when we ask you. You don't have to eat piles of it, just eat a little bit of it. After 2-3 weeks, your body will start to recognize that food as beneficial. And when you first have it, it's a foreign taste. It's something that your body doesn't know what it's getting. So it's not going to have a super pleasant response to it. But after you put that food in your stomach and you're able to digest that food, and your body is able to realize the nutrients that are in it and the healthfulness that it's getting from eating that food, it's going to send a signal to your brain and say, hey, I know you didn't have any idea what that flavor was when it came in, but it's awesome. We love it. So next time that comes in, that's a good thing. And it starts to retrain your taste buds in your mouth and your preferences. But you have to give it time. And with our kids, we have 4 kids, and we have each one of them are on different spectrums of this acceptance of eating more vegetables and eating things that you're not comfortable with initially, but then over time, getting used to it. And a couple of our kids adopted this diet right away, and whatever kind of food we put in front of them, they're cool with. And then a couple of our kids, we've had to kind of slowly transition and kind of get them to try things. And at least now we're really, I feel like, at a good point that the kids will try the food. They may not like it, they may not eat all of it, but they'll at least give it a try, and they'll taste some of it. And it's always great when they do try it and then they get surprised and they're like, oh, this is good. Yeah, I like this. And then they eat it. So, but yeah, and it's been great that our kids have been eating the broccoli. Jay here says that berries are only 200 calories a pound. Yes. And that's really what we do. We push a lot of fruit on our kids because I know that they're going to eat the fruit. And yeah, and something that, another thing, and I don't know if it helps or if it makes a difference, but, at night, sometimes our kids will complain about, not being able to go to sleep or being restless. And Carrie kind of wasn't, sure about it at first, but what I started to suggest to the kids was that if you're tired, it's late, I know you're tired, but you're not able to go to sleep, let's go get some sugar in you. Let's get some apples and some oranges, or banana, and let's get your cortisol in check, because I believe that affects their ability to go to sleep. And like I said, I can't say that it is 100% helped, but it seems to be working. Our kids, they come out, they complain about not sleeping, they go grab an apple, they go grab an orange, and I don't see them again. So, whether it's actually doing something or if it's a placebo effect, I'm not sure, but I know Carrie was kind of like, wait, you want to give our kids sugar right before bed? And, from some of the things I had seen and listened to, like, I was willing to go as far as giving them sugar water, like just take some water and put sugar in it, but we don't have that in our house. So, we go with the fruit, the oranges and the bananas, and those things. Gene here says you were lucky to get them started right. Mine are adults and don't want to hear eat your vegetables. You would, Gene says that losing weight has got them thinking though. Yeah, it's yeah, I'm very happy that we are influencing our kids at such a young age, and I hope they're able to take those tools and the skill that we're giving them and take that with them as they get older and they get out of our house, or as they move out of our house. Yeah, and it's tough. Like, my oldest kid is probably the toughest one as far as getting them to eat this way, because they had the most time eating the way we used to eat. Our youngest two kids, they are much more impressionable, I guess, or they listen to us better. They don't necessarily remember the junk food that we used to eat before. And they still do get junk food, which also makes it tough to get them to eat healthy, because they would rather not eat right now because there's a sucker later or there's a candy bar that those aren't really things we have, but like, or something sweet that they could have later. There's a snack they could have later, or they could have chips and hummus. They'd rather have chips and hummus than mega veggie chili. And so it's tough to kind of make them eat the mega veggie chili. Especially because I want them to get calories, like I don't want them to be starving. So they need to eat something. And, I think maybe they realize that that's kind of there, that's part of it, that they can refuse the food, but my parents are going to make sure I eat something, and so then we kind of cave. And we've been trying to hold a harder line with that and to have less of that processed stuff in our house. And that's one of our goals for this summer, is to start removing some of the processed foods from our kids' diet. And so we've been doing it slowly here. We've been trying to change the bread up because they were relying pretty heavily on, different types of sandwiches, and just trying to get them to start eating a little bit more whole food and less processed food. And the other thing with conquering obesity with food is the elimination of processed foods. I talked a little bit yesterday about processed foods and just how they end up getting more and more processed, and these companies are really only focused on profit margin. They don't have any incentive to worry about our health. They only are incentivized to worry about the profit margin that the company is making, because that's how they get their living. And if they can't keep making a profit, then they're going to get fired. And so the result of that is our food just keeps getting more and more processed, because there's only so far you can take it when you are just using whole natural foods. It's not until you start adding these chemical processes that you can create food that doesn't exist in nature. There's at no time in our ancestry prior to 100 years ago did anybody have a Snickers bar. But now we have that available to us readily. I probably could walk a mile in any direction from where I'm at, find a gas station, and buy a Snickers bar. But I don't necessarily think I could go a mile in every direction and buy an apple, which is pretty awful. Jay here says that hummus and avocado on a sandwich is delicious. Yeah. I used to love having avocado toast on Ezekiel bread. I've never been big into hummus. It's something that the kids enjoy. I know Carrie's enjoyed it, and they've always eaten hummus. Like even before we started eating plant-based, they would eat hummus occasionally, but it's just not something I've ever really gotten into. And the only hummus I guess I would eat at this point would be something that we would make ourselves. Because I don't know that I could find a hummus that didn't have oil in it. Yeah, Jay says for the kids, the hummus and avocado on a sandwich. Yeah, that's something that we've been working on, different kind of snack things, different meals, trying to get, a little less processing in the food that our kids are eating. So yeah, that's something that we'll have to give that a shot. Do you put hummus and avocado like on the same sandwich? I guess that would be a question too. Or if there's a hummus sandwich and a not, because um, yeah, they'd probably like that. Um, and we got to also get our kids off of the bread that they're eating and get them more towards like an Ezekiel bread as opposed to um, the bread we're buying or the bread we were buying while they were having their school lunches and things like that. Um, but yes, I believe that the number one driver for obesity in our population is the processing of foods. That is what is the core of the problem, is that we are eating far too many processed foods, and we should try to be eating as little to no processed foods as possible. That would be kind of the biggest difference between my previous diet or the way I was eating before and the diet that I'm eating now. Is I went from a diet that was 99% processed food, or even if I gracious and say it was 95% processed foods. Now I'm on the opposite end of that. Now 95% of my diet is unprocessed. And the volume of my diet, I don't feel like has changed a whole lot. I probably do eat less food now than I did when I was 520 pounds as far as volume goes. But it's not a lot. It's not near as big a difference as the calorie difference in my diet. When I was eating fast food for breakfast and lunch and then grabbing a snack on the way home and then eating dinner, I was easily eating 5,000 plus calories a day. And that's probably on the low end, that I was eating 5,000 calories a day. And now with the food I'm eating, I don't have any idea how many calories I eat a day, but I would say it's probably closer to 2,000 to 2,500 calories a day. So essentially, by changing from eating a processed diet to eating an unprocessed diet, I cut my calorie consumption in half each day without having to change the volume that I'm eating. And that is something that I knew that was the case. Like I was talking about with broccoli, like I knew broccoli was much healthier to eat than Snickers bars were, but I couldn't convince myself that it was worth it or that it was, because my brain was confused. My body was confused. I was comparing a natural food like broccoli or beans or rice or just plain potatoes. I was comparing a natural food to a highly processed unnatural food. And of course, it's not going to be the same. It's like saying that a Prius and a Ferrari are the same. A Prius and a Ferrari are both cars, just like an apple and a Snickers are both foods, but one of those is going to they're different, you know, like somebody who can drive a Prius doesn't necessarily know how to drive a Ferrari, or they wouldn't be able to drive the Ferrari very well, you know. And it it's it's an unfair comparison, you know, because a Prius is a great car. But it's not a Ferrari, right? But how great is a Ferrari? Are you going to drive a Ferrari daily, you know, or do you have a Ferrari for the weekends? You know, are you going to take a $200,000 car out on the road, or are you going to take a $30,000 car out in the road? Um, it's something where with this processed food, you know, it's okay occasionally, just like driving a Ferrari would be okay occasionally, but you wouldn't want to do it daily. You wouldn't want to have to sit on the highway and in traffic uh in that kind of car. Whereas a Prius would be more comfortable or more um you know, it would be more enjoyable to sit in traffic in a Prius than a Ferrari. Obviously the Ferrari would be more fun on the interstate, but uh you just have to realize, you know, that while it's more fun, it's not more helpful, and it's going to spend a lot more fuel money, and it's going to cost you a lot more to drive a Ferrari all the time. Maybe that's where I need to go with it. Is it's going to be a lot more expensive. It's going to cost you a lot to drive a Ferrari all the time versus a Prius. And the cost of eating processed food is high, and people are willing to pay that price because they get to be seen in a Ferrari, you know, or they get to eat that food. I get to have a whole pizza to myself. I get to eat 3,000 calories from Long John Silver's in a meal. Um, you know, you get all the enjoyment from that. You get the pleasure of pounding the gas or pounding the food into your stomach. But at what cost? You know, how much danger are you putting yourself in? I would imagine that there's been a lot more, you know, obviously there's more number of Priuses on the road than Ferraris, but there's probably been a lot of very high speed fatal accidents in a Ferrari that you couldn't do in a Prius. I couldn't drive a Prius 150 miles an hour and get into an accident, but you can do that with a Ferrari. And just like you can you can protect yourself from having a heart attack by eating whole food plant-based and eating low fat foods. You put yourself at an increased risk of having a heart attack by eating the McDonald's and the Burger Kings and those fast foods. And so you have to realize there's a cost, and that cost is your health. And until you realize that you don't have to be stuck in it, you know, like that's maybe part of what was big with me is that I just didn't see a way out. I felt like I was stuck being overweight and obese, and there was no hope, like, because everything I had ever tried failed. Like, you know, how many different diets do you have to try before you just give up on yourself? And I think that I had reached that point. I in 2014, I really did. And I spent 6 years just eating myself to death. And, you know, I kind of gave it one last ditch effort, I guess, you know, or gave it one more effort that, this channel, this whole thing was me just wanting to avoid having surgery, because I always had that in the back of my mind that I could just rely on weight loss surgery. I really felt like, yeah, you know, it's so hard, you know, how your mind works, and to think back and try to remember, you know, like the absolute last thing I ever wanted to do was have some form of bariatric surgery or some sort of surgery to affect my digestion. But I think that it was subconscious that I just had it in my head that was going to be my way out. I was going to go see a doctor. He was going to say, you know, I mean, I don't know exactly how it would go, but in my head, I think of like, you watch shows like the 600-Pound Life, and these people go in and they see the doctor, and the doctor says, okay, I need you to eat this diet for the next couple months. And if you can lose 20 or 30 or 40 or whatever pounds, then we'll approve you for weight loss surgery. And I always thought in my head, well, I can easily lose 30 pounds. I've lost 30 pounds. I probably lost 30 pounds a dozen times in my life, at least. And so I'd be able to do whatever the doctors asked. I would be able to do whatever the doctors wanted me to do so that I would get approved for the weight loss surgery. And then once I had the surgery, that would just fix my problem, right? Because I'm an overeater. Like that's what they want you to think. They want you to think that you overeat and you have a food addiction, and it's not. Your need for a certain amount of food per day is not a food addiction. The addiction is the foods that you're choosing to eat, or the foods that you keep going to, but people don't realize that. They associate the food that they're eating with the addiction, and that they overeat that food, so they're addicted to food. No, you are a person that likes to eat a high volume of food. And the buffet that you keep going to is full of junk food. And you keep satisfying your body's natural instinct for a volume, whatever your volume is, whether it's 2 pounds or 4 pounds or 6 pounds or 3.1 pounds, whatever your body craves for volume of food, your body's going to keep craving that volume of food. It's not going to change its mind. It's not going to say, oh, you know what? We spent 30 years having to eat 4 pounds of food a day. Now we're going to only eat 2 pounds of food a day. It's not the way it works. You have to change the food that's at the buffet that you're walking up to. Pretty Girl's mom checking in saying, hey, Pretty Girl's mom. I think I missed somebody else checking in earlier too. Christy said hello. Hey, Christy, hope everything's going great. If you guys could hit that thumbs up button, I'd really appreciate it. Send this video out. Maybe we can get some people in here asking some questions about eating a whole food, plant-based, salt, oil, sugar-free diet. But the, what was I talking about? The processing foods and the, yeah, I didn't think I had to worry too much about my health, because I could just go and see a doctor and they would do some surgeries, move some things around, and I'd get taken care of. Because I had tried doing the appetite suppressants. I would try doing the different programs, the Weight Watchers, all these things, and they just never worked. Let's see. Jay here says, then you would be eating spoonfuls instead of bowlfuls. Yeah, if your body was a caloric measurement device, then people could just eat, 1 teaspoon of oil and you'd be satisfied for the day, because that would be hundreds of calories, or 1 tablespoon or 1 whatever. You could just drink oil and that's all you would ever need, because calories, a calorie is a calorie, and that's what they want you to think, but that's not truth. That's not the truth. You need to eat the big volume of food. When I eat a bag of broccoli, I get satisfied from eating a large volume of broccoli, and how many times, and Carrie has said this to me in the past too, that like we would go out to eat and we would eat a full meal and we would know it was hundreds and thousands of calories. We go to the fast food restaurant and we get something, and then we'd be home an hour, hour and a half later, and we'd be in our pantry looking for potato chips or looking for snacks, because when you take that fast food and you kind of break it down into the actual volume that the food is, it's not very much volume. You know, you take that white bread and you get a little bit wet and you ball it up, and it's going to be smaller than the size of a golf ball. You take the French fries and they're going to be the same way. You could ball them up and they're going to be not near as much potato as you think it is when you're eating it out of the container. And then the meat itself, it's not good quality meat that you're eating. And there's probably lots of fillers and things in the meat that isn't really meat either. And there's lots of oil in it, that it ends up being a lot of calories for a very little amount of weight. And I'd almost be interested to see how much, the food I used to eat would weigh. Like if I were to take it and put it on a scale, how much did it weigh the food I was eating, and compare that to the weight of the food that I'm eating now. Because when I have 4 or 5 potatoes with a bag of broccoli, that's probably as heavy as my, the bags that I used to get from fast food were. But the calorie difference is incredible. Let's see. Jean here says that processed foods are tricky at times. She made lentil pasta and found it stuffed. You were so full. Yeah. And it's not that you have to eat things that are completely unprocessed. There's some processes that have to happen in order for the food to be able for us to eat. If you are the type of person that likes rolled oats, there's not anything inherently wrong with a rolled oat. It's just more processed than oat groats are. The lentil pasta, it's really funny. I'm reading a book right now called Grain by Grain. It was recommended by somebody on the channel here. And I've been telling Carrie that she's really going to hate this book, because it's been pushing me towards more organic eating. Organic farming is what the book is about. And when you just mentioned the lentil pasta that you're eating, and it made me think of this book. And he talks about one of the first kind of, let me see, how much backstory do I have to give to get this point across? So the guy, the main character in this book, is a wheat farmer in Montana. And he, in the 80s and 90s, was switching his farming over from the conventional farming to more organic farming. He found that he was not happy with what was happening in the regular farming industry. Everything was about getting things down to their cheapest price possible. And he just didn't think that was beneficial to the farmers. So he started looking into organic farming, or seeing, if he found a customer base in organic farming. And he had lots of things that kind of didn't go right, and some things that did go right, and just kind of lots of ups and downs like you have with business. But one of the things that he talked about that I just listened to in the book was that they started to grow what was called an heirloom plant, or it was the name of it was what do you call it? He called it King Tut's wheat. And so it was like an Egyptian wheat that they had the seeds for, that they ended up doing some experiments with that wheat and seeing what they could find or seeing, if there was a market for it. And what they found was that the wheat that most people are growing now, or were growing at the time, I imagine still growing, was specifically made to essentially be turned into white flour. It was made so that it was easy for them to remove the bran from it. I believe I want to say it was German bran, were the two things that were removed in a lot of the processing of wheat. But anyways, what they were finding was that when they tried to use modern seeds to make pastas, like whole wheat pastas, that it was really rough and it was hard to eat the pasta. And so they ended up trying to make pasta with this heirloom seed. And they found that because that seed hadn't been modified to have a harder shell or to be easier to have the bran removed, that they actually, it made it taste better. And I guess I'm going on about this, but it was just the point to get across was that eating pasta isn't necessarily bad if you are eating, if you're still eating the whole item. If the pasta is made from whole wheat, or if it's made from, you said it was lentil pasta, whole lentils, that you're still getting the diversity of that product. What he was talking about in the book was that they found that there was people having issues eating wheat, but then when they switched over to eating an heirloom wheat, like this King Tut's wheat, that they didn't have issues. And it was because the King Tut wheat was more complete. It was the whole wheat, whereas the processed wheat was missing the germ or the bran, and that was causing some health issues. So I guess what I'd say is that eating pasta, or, whole wheat pasta or lentil pasta, it is more processed, but it doesn't mean that you can't have it sometimes. And what the one part of your comment too, that you said that it stuffs you so full, is when I was early on in this diet, there was a couple times where we had pasta and tomato sauce that Carrie had made, and I just went to town on it. Like, and really any time that Carrie does make pasta, I feel like I just eat it all. But every time that I would have this, what I felt like was a binge on pasta, I'd get on the scale the next day and I would be lighter. It was never really something that caused me to gain weight. But yeah, you just want to avoid the highly processed pastas. I mean, if you're buying a lentil pasta, I imagine that it's probably going to be more organic or more, or less processed than if you're buying a box of Kraft macaroni and cheese pasta, or kind of the normal pasta that you're used to eating or buying. But yes, what else did I want to talk about? Plants Only Muncher says that in the 80s and 90s, long before they were vegan, they used to eat at buffets all the time. You always overate, especially on desserts. Well, I think that what the problem is the mentality that whatever, you never overate. Like, you always ate the volume of food that your body needed or wanted. It's just the foods that you chose to eat caused you, that you overate calories, and there is going to be some, I guess, overeating in that foods become more palatable. Like they talk about with salt. Salt makes food more palatable. If I gave you a bowl of popcorn with no salt on it, you would eat half the bowl. But if I put salt on that popcorn, you might eat 2/3 of the bowl, or you might eat the whole bowl. So there is some of that, hyper palatability, or that you get from the food that's on the buffet, but you didn't necessarily used to overeat. But you overate calories. You overconsumed calories. I have no doubt that you overconsumed on calories when you went to those buffets. But if you would have eaten that same volume of food, but it just been broccoli, kale, carrots, onions, mushrooms, potatoes, lentils, foods that are under 600 calories per pound, then you would not have had, you wouldn't necessarily be saying that you overate, like the people that go to the buffet at the True North Clinic, if, how much food would they have to eat before where you get to the point where you say they were overeating? Can you, overeat if it keeps you, is overeating a problem if you're still in a calorie deficit, I guess would be another thing, but yes. Yeah, I used to go to buffet. I mean, I would crush a buffet. I remember like there was a place called Ryan's Steakhouse that when I was a kid, that was a huge thing for us to go to Ryan's Steakhouse. In fact, Ryan's Steakhouse was one of the few places that I would eat vegetables because they had this fried okra that I absolutely loved. Like I would get a whole plate of just fried okra. And think, well, hey, look, I'm eating my veggies. I'm eating okra. It doesn't make a difference that there's these little balls that are completely covered in breading and fried. But yeah, I used to go to the Ryan Steakhouses or the Golden Corrals and just eat and eat and eat and then grab dessert afterwards. And yeah. And so, but it's something where your body is designed, it can fit food in it. So, you just got to change the food that you're putting in it. So, Matthew here says that highly processed foods make him physically ill. Yay. Yes. Like that's something that I am very happy that I'm not used to eating that food anymore. Before, when I was eating all that highly processed foods, eating health food would make me ill, or it would make me feel ill, or the thought of it made me ill. And now it's the opposite. It's the idea of having processed foods makes me ill or makes me sick. Gene here says that you had a mix of beans, peas, corn, also in the tomato sauce. It was on the high level of protein that satisfied you for hours. That's awesome. That you had all those veggies in there, beans and corn and peas. That's awesome. Stephanie checking in saying, hello, John and family. Hello, Stephanie. Hope you're having a great day. Just talking about how processed foods are what's making people fat. I don't know what people are blaming. They're blaming carbohydrates. And that really, oh man. And I was the same way. I blamed carbohydrates for years. It was the carbohydrates' fault that I was fat. And it's not. There's different types of carbohydrates, just like there's different types of protein and there's different types of fats, but people just lump them all together. When somebody says carbohydrate, they think of potato chips. They don't think of a plain baked potato because it's not common for people to eat just plain baked potatoes. Think about the millennia of human history that happened, or what, even if it's only been 15,000 years that we've been eating wheat or grains or whatever, but or that we've been farming it, I guess. We've probably been eating it forever. But your parents, their parents, maybe the parents before them, like how many generations do you go back before you see people just eating potatoes? Like, people didn't have table salt. People didn't have sticks of butter. People didn't have bacon and cheese to put in their potatoes. People just had the potato. And if all you have is the potato, that's what you're going to eat. You're not going to have this big stockpile of potatoes and say, "Oh no, I can't eat any potatoes till I get some ketchup or I get some gravy." No, people would have just eaten plain potatoes. They would have just eaten plain brown rice. And that's still foreign to me. Like, Carrie will take a bowl of brown rice and she'll just eat just plain brown rice. And that's not something I've gotten to the point to doing yet, but I wouldn't even eat rice 2 years ago. So you have to give me a little bit of time to get used to it, but it would have been normal. Like we live in this world where we think we have to put seasonings and we have to alter the flavor of the food that we're eating and create these complex meals when we could just be eating simply, and we could just be eating the single thing. Jay here says that he puts okra in the air fryer till crispy. I don't know if I've ever had just okra. I think that unless it's something we've had since we started this diet, we might have had okra in recipes, but I don't know if I've ever had just okra. I might have to give that a shot, see how it is. Yeah, just the processed foods, like the before the 1900s, what food processing did we have available? This thing, before we had electricity in our house, what food processing could we do? Before we had, the industrial kind of industrialization of society and the microwaves and, like even an electric range, like we didn't have that. They might've had, I don't even know when the first gas stoves were in homes, but because it all happened before we were around, we think of it as just history, like it's hard to separate how people lived in 1920 versus how people lived in 1820 in my mind. Like when I think back of, but the difference had to have been astronomical, because the difference between 1920 and 2020 has been astronomical. You transplant somebody from 1920 into the 2020s, you're going to blow their mind. They will not comprehend what's going on. That same thing would happen if you took somebody from the 1820s and you dropped them in the 1920s. Their mind would have been blown to see a motorized anything or to see street lights or all the things that you saw 100 years later. But for me, I don't really know that difference, like it's how it was before I was around. So, it doesn't matter, but it kind of does, because our food system has been polluted. It's something that, we don't realize it because it's been polluted our whole lives, because we've been inside that pollution. Nikki here says that okra is a no for me. You hate the is it slime factor? Is that what you wanted to write there? You wrote slim, but I think you meant slime. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I said, I've only had it breaded, but Jay seems to like it if you put it in the air fryer till it's crispy. So I'm sure that helps with some of that, any slime or anything that's on it. But yeah, so we have a hard time recognizing that our food system is so different and it's so disordered that, yeah, I figured. And that it's not how we evolved to eat. And it doesn't benefit us to eat these processed foods because it's lots of these processed foods are missing things that we needed or that were part of our diet that we evolved eating. It's and to just remove that, like I get like the fiber. That's the biggest thing, is that my diet, previously it had fiber in it, but most of the foods that I ate were fiber removed foods. And so when my body would receive that food, it would be expecting some amount of fiber because over the last 10,000 years or whatever, 100,000 years or what, that my ancestry was here, they had fiber in their food. So their offspring was designed to digest some amount of fiber. And then their offspring, and then as time went on, they got better and better at digesting fiber. And then the 1950s hit and we start removing fiber from our food and we start seeing health problems. I think that there's a huge correlation, and it's hard to tell because we don't have any data. We're in such a world of data now that you can get analyses for weight and height and BMI and everything about every population around the world. But there was nobody in 1750 who was really concerned about the diet of the population, so they weren't doing studies on that, or they didn't have the way to record any studies and pass that information along like we do now. But the food that we ate 300 years ago and 3,000 years ago and 30,000 years ago is the food that our bodies evolved to eat. It's the food that we became experts at eating. We may have not had the variety that we eat now. We may have only had foods that were in our region. But our body would get good at digesting that food. And then we changed it all up. We took a diet that humans had been eating for thousands and thousands of years, and we started messing with it. And we started playing God with our food and taking things out and making it more palatable. But I guess the biggest thing I'm trying to get across is we need to go back to eating like we used to eat. We need to eat like we don't have access to all this technology that is really screwed up our diet. Or it's yeah. So yeah. I mean, I'm so thankful. Like Matt said, that highly processed foods make him physically ill. That is something that we should all strive to get to, is to the point where processed foods are going to make us sick. And it helps keep you on your diet then. And yeah, and I guess the other point I don't have to stop eating. I don't have to starve myself. I don't have to cut my intake down to lose the weight I want to lose. And that's something where that absolutely was not my mentality coming into this channel. And I can prove that to you because coming into this channel, I did a 40-day fast thinking that, I just won't eat and I'll lose weight. And that it did. I mean, I lost 90 pounds in 41 days. That was incredible. I don't think I could have lost weight faster. But it wasn't sustainable. I couldn't have fasted for another 40 days and then another 40 days and then, until I got to my healthy weight. it wouldn't, I mean, maybe I could have. It would have been very difficult, and it would have not taught me anything. Like, that is the other thing that you have to, I don't know how many other things there's going to be today. You have to educate yourself. You have to learn. You have to learn how to eat like you're going to eat when you're at your healthy weight. If you spend 2 years or 3 years eating some diet to lose weight, but never spend any time learning how to eat when you get to that healthy weight, then you're going to get to your healthy weight and you're going to be lost, because many times that diet that you're eating to get to the healthy weight isn't sustainable and you can't keep it up. And you just gotta realize that starving yourself isn't helping. When I would have a slip up, when I would eat food that was off plan, I feel like the best thing I could do for myself is to eat on plan food as soon as possible and as in a high a volume as possible afterwards, because you don't want your body you don't want to leave that food in your digestive tract to give your body the time to break it down and put it into your system. You need to get healthy foods back in your stomach so you can push that junk food out, which is also a mentality I did not have going into this. I was always under the impression, if you had a cheat day, that you had to convince yourself to get right back on, and or to I guess anytime I had a cheat day, it would throw my calories into a point where I would be above my calorie limit for the day. So then I would not eat anymore the rest of that day, and it always failed, because that was, I guess, the idea. But every time I had a cheat day, it turned into, anytime I had a cheat meal, it turned into a cheat day. It was always, well, I already screwed today up, I might as well lean into it. And that would make it very difficult to get back onto the diet the next day or the following day, because I would just keep, well, I screwed up, whatever, like just giving up, essentially flipping that chessboard, like Dr. Lisle talks about. But I'm going to get out of here today. It is Tuesday today, so tomorrow is going to be weigh-in Wednesday. I'm going to hop on the scale. Hopefully I can lose a little bit of weight this week and get closer to that halfway point. I am 3 pounds away from half the weight when I started, which is just mind-blowing that I'm half of what I used to be. I don't, yeah, or I'm getting close to half of what I used to be. And, I was heavier than 519.8 at one point. But so I'm probably half of what I was at my heaviest. But when I started this challenge, I was 519.8. And so it's incredible. Being 255 pounds lighter it's everything that you would hope it to be. If you're walking around at 500 pounds and you are wondering if you're thinking about, what's it going to be like when I get to my goal weight? Am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be able to do that? Yes, you're going to be able to do so many of those things that you can't do now. Every part of my life has improved because I started this and because I've lost the weight. There's nothing that, that's not improved. I might get fewer points from fast food restaurants or like gas stations, I guess, like rewards program points, because I'm consuming less. But yeah, everything is better. Like it's so awesome to wake up and be able to get out of bed and not cringe that your ankles are going to be killing you the whole day. And to not have my heart rate spike all the time, and to be able to do things with my family. It's just awesome. So, all right, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you guys so much for all of the support. If you have not subscribed to the channel, make sure you get subscribed to the channel. If you've not clicked on that bell icon so you get alerted when I go live or post new videos, make sure you click on that bell icon. Hit the thumbs up on this video as well. And if you have not started your diet yet, get started right now. There's nothing coming up that's more important than your health or your overall well-being. And there's nobody that reaches their goals, looks back and wishes they would have waited. I'm still 43 pounds away from my goal, and I wish I would have started sooner so I was closer. So get started now, guys. Thanks, everybody. Yes, I'm hoping for a weight loss tomorrow. You guys all have a great afternoon, and we'll talk to you later.